Okay, so I thought today as a topic to potentially go into, we could talk about transitions. When you shift into an out of body experience, what type of shifts do you experience? When I'm consciously going out of body from a conscious state of awareness, um, what happened at first was I would be rotated. My position would be shifted. I would be laying there horizontally in the bed. Um, from the conscious state of awareness I was in, this will feel much like floating in water. I'm not in physical space here, I'm in etheric space. And it will feel like floating, and I will be rotated, for instance, from horizontal to head down, feet up. And I'll be rotated this way and perhaps another way. 3 rotations equals I'm out and in a new field. So when I first started shifting, that's what I would experience. Actually, prior to that, what I would experience was I would be in a space that felt like being on the inside of a balloon being blown up. There was a slight pressure inside this environment, and I would simply witness myself slowly stop breathing, and then new environment. So these are 2 type of shifts that I would have from within an out-of-body experience. The classic shift of the way I classically move from one place to another place is simply by dematerializing and rematerializing, and or the environment deconstructing and then reconstructing into a new environment. So these are sort of common shifts that I go through when I'm shifting. Let me mute my microphone and listen to Ra. Why don't you go next?
For me, usually I'm sitting up, and I close my eyes and I go inwards and I start looking and I find a center of motion that's moving, and this is a portal that I recognize, and I have to will to go through it, or I stay there and view and interact with whoever comes forward from this environment, which is usually what I speak of my twin. There's, as far as physical sensations, I'm aware that I don't really have any, and I can bring anything into view. I can see my own hand, and I can make something come out of it. I can make different things. As going into a different environment, it feels like the environment's coming to me really fast. It's like this kind of emotion, and then I'm there, and there's a little bit of a disorientation sometimes with that, a slightly dizzy feeling, and then all the pictures and everything begin happening in that environment. Depending, I can interact with it, and that's usually how it happens for me. When I sleep, it's like I just kind of, I don't seem to go into much of a different state slowly. I just seem to go to sleep and then find myself in that, in and out of body. But the conscious one, it can happen pretty quickly.
As a child, I kind of did some of this. I would just sit for hours. I had a hell of a time sleeping ever. I would just sit with my eyes closed, watching hypnagogic imagery, trying to sleep. And I'd have a lot of things drift by, I had this kind of thing of boards with like studs on them being carried by me in front of me, back and forth, all strange stuff like that. But eventually I'd go walking down this long alley. It all sounds so typical now that I'm an adult, I'd walk down this long alley-like thing, and I'd eventually get to an end where I'd take a left onto this big plane. And I'd like to get out there and explore the plane, but it's kind of difficult to get to that alley. You get towards the end, there's like all these distractions where people trying to distract you or stuff like that. And it's typical stuff you'd read now, but it's what I experienced as a kid. I used to do that all the time. I'd get on this wide plane. God, how did I write it down? It was like an orange area, but it was like green halfway up and plane. And the green had like a fire-like texture to it. You know, it was like a dithered edge, not a flat horizon. But it kind of reminded me of what I used to do when I was a kid a lot, going out to a plane like that, you know.
So you get the visuals and vision screens, and you use the vision screens to do your shift.
Yeah, I suppose you could almost call that, you know, hypnagogic imagery. I don't know if you're following Reese and some of what he's been doing on Facebook.
Recently, yeah, we've been together a long time.
And,
Since the beginning.
you know, the guy he's talking about going into looking at your hypnagogic imagery, finding some detail and trying to, what's the word, I'm wild into it, you know, basically. And I guess that's kind of what I was doing as a child, really.
Do you ever have any of the wild physical body phenomena? Do you experience the vibrations through the physical body? It's purely in the awareness center, the third eye chakra.
You know, I've never, ever, I'm 60 now, I hate to admit, I've never experienced paralysis, ever. Maybe a little vibration, but I've never experienced paralysis, sleep paralysis. I'm kind of a light sleeper, though. I'm a real goofy sleeper. I mean, it doesn't take anything to wake me up.
Have you ever experienced sleep paralysis, now that Anton has brought that up?
Yes, it hasn't happened to me for a very long time, but it used to happen a lot. In fact, it was in certain places that I lived, I noticed for whatever reason, 2 different places on the island it was just like, it was recurrent and it was really something. But yeah.
Tell us about your experiences of sleep paralysis. Just hone in on one and tell us what it's like.
I'm laying in the bed in this, and it was actually, I was at a domestic violence shelter, and I was sleeping there. This was a long time ago, maybe over 20 years ago. And I was awake, but I couldn't move, and I was stuck to the bed, and I was aware that there were, for whatever reason, I had the feeling of all these different people walking around, lots of spirits and people walking around the room like in a circle. And I was trying everything to wake myself up. From childhood, I learned how to wake myself up. I used to have recurrent nightmares a lot. And I learned how I can wake myself up by forcing my leg to move or something. But in the sleep paralysis, I just absolutely couldn't do it. Yeah, just
Tell us
couldn't move.
about the fear.
No.
Tell us about the fear.
The fear was panic. It was like panic because I'm unable to move and I feel like I can't control the environment at all, and nothing makes sense. It's just like chaos. This is always what triggered my nightmares, even as a child. It was this feeling of just absolute, things are just falling apart in complete chaos. There's no order. People and things are flying and houses and everything, and this feeling of being unable to move or to do anything about it, or to navigate or anything at all, any sort of decision.
You're aware of entities around you. Is this what's causing the fear?
More not so much the entities, but the feeling of just that everything's going into a state of complete chaos and falling apart.
Okay. The recurring nightmare. What's yours?
When I was young,
You mentioned the recurring nightmare. Mm-hmm.
There was one where it was like I'm lifting off of the ground and I can't control it, and things start flying around in the house and everything turns like purple and the walls come off and I'm just flying upwards and I can't do anything about it. It was like that. There was other ones that were more specific. There was one when I was very young that I would see 2 disembodied hands, and they were coming to take my hands away, and I would run down all these horrible hallways and escape these 2 disembodied hands. I actually sleep with my hands under my pillow to hide my hands from the hands. That was one of them.
Okay, and you learn to wake yourself out of the experience of the paralysis, of the out of controlness by moving a leg. What did you do specifically? Did you try to wiggle toes? Did you try to lengthen the leg? What did you try to do?
Yeah, usually I try to move like my leg or my foot from the knee or somewhere, because I'm aware that I'm dreaming and okay, this is happening now again and I don't like this and so I need to get out of this. And it's usually I try to move my leg from my knee, I think, in that area.
Okay, so I can completely relate to this. I experience sleep paralysis a bit different than most other people because although I do periodically experience it from the physical state, it's very rare that that happens. So I experience sleep paralysis a bit more blissfully. I don't feel trapped in it because I'm in multiple frequency fields simultaneously. I'm not locked in one. When I am locked in one, there's extreme panic. um, I also have a recurring nightmare it's not really a nightmare. It's scary to me. And like yourself, when I'm having it, I learned I could wake myself up out of it by literally screaming through to my physical body. And so from within that experience, I would scream for help, just literally over and over again, help, help. And my physical body would make a sound, not quite a word, but it would make a squeak, for lack of a better way to say it. And yeah, I could get myself out of it that way. I could never think I could connect with my physical body to move my physical body. I could only scream. So that was all I could come up with. This particular repeating dream, scary dream, I'm just walking and I know that somebody is after me. And I try to start walking faster, but my feet get magnetically sealed to the ground. It's really hard for me to pick up one foot and get it put in front of the other. And so after a period of time, I know they're getting closer and I'm not going to get away in this fashion. So I create a body of water somehow. This could be anything, a lake to a puddle of water in the street is the very last one I remember creating as a child. And here forward, I always just create the puddle because it's easier. Just any body of water. And then I just dive into it. And although it's just a puddle of water, I go deep down into it like I had just dove into the ocean, you know. And from way down deep in there, I turn myself to face the surface of the water and I can see who it is who's up there. And generally they're shooting down at me. And the bullets are coming through the water at me and I'm trying to dodge the bullets. And I usually can dodge them a time or two before I'm hit. And then extreme anguish through my center. Just a sickening feeling. This is how I'm come after, you know. When I was a kid, this is how they came after me. Came and got me. So this was, you know, then I'd be on the craft, I'd be on the table, I would be examined and experimented on and all kinds of stuff. And so that went on from there. But I knew that when I was having the experience of not being able to get my legs going, you know, that magnetically sealed to the ground sensation, I knew I had to wake myself up now or have to be aware on the craft. And that was a time that, you know, things were happening that I didn't want to be aware of that. So I would try to scream and wake myself up.
The only thing I could add on that is, and I don't know if it's just a dream I had because I read a bunch of stuff about this, you know, and I'm just kind of like mimicking it in my dream experience. But I read a lot of accounts of people getting out of their body in kind of a lower body, a body that's maybe subastral even, and they get out, but they feel really heavy, like they're wearing a suit of lead. They can walk around, but it's like really, really tough, really labored. And I had a dream like that. Again, I don't know if it was just in response to reading that kind of stuff, or if I actually experienced it. Stuff like that does happen to me, though. I want to see a certain experience, and I ask, contemplate on it, and then I'll have a dream about it eventually if I keep it up long enough. Like I wanted to know, I read an account about how a cat sees from some person who projected into their cat and looked out, their cat's eyes kind of thing, and it was a real interesting experience. And I tried to have that experience, and I had that experience. I also had an experience of watching people dream, from a distance, and watch people project their dreams in front of them. I know we talked about this way back, but that's about all I can really add about the.
Let's stay with the heavy sensation and shifting out of body. This happens when you're shifting out of body into the etheric version of your space. You say subastral, the etheric, yes, you could think of it as subastral. The etheric is simply where the physical and the astral overlap a bit. And when some people really force trying to get out of body, when there's not enough consciousness, not enough energy built, and they're sort of pushing, willfully pushing themselves out of body. You can land out of body and it's just real heavy. The environment will always be dark around you, and it will feel like it's, every movement is an effort. Have you had that happen, Ron?
I've definitely had dreams that were like that, where for some reason I'm fighting with somebody, and like a physical fight, and I'm like lead. I can't, like, it's like slow. It was just absolutely horrible. And or trying to run for some reason or something, and it's like everything is just really, really heavy. Yeah.
So what do you do to get out of that?
That's never been something that really caused me to panic or anything. It was just more annoying than anything. I don't think I've ever tried to get out of that stage. Really, it just ends somehow.
Okay. So you don't pursue the experience though, right? It's just sort of have the thought that this is not altogether pleasant or what you want to be experiencing, and you shift. Yeah. Okay, yeah, same here. I've never, when I go out of body, I very rarely am somebody who ends up in the etheric version of my room in a mundane sense, meaning I'm just in my house and now I'm going to go into the kitchen and get something to eat, or the things that you normally do in your house. When I shift into the etheric, I'm in galactic space. I'm already, and the ETs will be there. There'll be all kinds of weird phenomena, envoys that come in very interesting figures, mechanical spiders crawling across the walls and ceiling, things like this, very non-mundane things. So I don't know what that's like to actually, end up there heavy. I never had to willfully push myself out of body. I simply go into consciousness and stay in the consciousness field until the energy's there to take me out. And during the 4 years that I was going out pretty much every day, that was just always there. It was at my disposal. So I never had to, again, push myself out or will myself out or try to get out. I just had to keep my awareness awake, aware, and available for when events started to happen. And I would just, ride that wave.
I wanted to make one little point for anyone who might, I know not for you guys as much as anyone who might listen later. The etheric, a lot of people define differently as to where it is, and as to what level it's at. So don't let that confuse you. I kind of accept your version. I also hear people talk about a etheric plane above the soul plane, the pure soul. So people have a lot of different terms you got to kind of put them in perspective to what the speaker's saying.
Sure, it's like the void. The void could be, thought of as one place. It's really not separate when people are defining these things in this way. There is the void, sure, from which everything happens, but in the terms of our experiences and dimensions, you could think of the void as there being a void space between every gradient. So that's when everything's fading to black and then the visuals come back in. And if you go into the voids, I've been in voids of various colors. The first thing that started coming to me was, wow, I wonder if these are gradients of the void that are between each of the dimensions, each gradient, and even each harmonic, the trinity of dimensions, dimension 1, 2, 3 being a harmonic, and there being a void of a particular shade or hue between that harmonic and the next harmonic out. And then voids of various colors being between, even in a single dimension, say the third dimension, I have identified and isolated 7 different gradients that I feel people evolve through. And so when you come into 3D, you come into that very first gradient, and there's a lesson plan to learn there. And then you go on to the second gradient and learn that. And it would be a lot like the way we think of chakras. You go through the base chakra space and lesson plan, and then the sacral chakra lesson plan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So just like there's 7 of the inner energy centers of the physical form, you could think of there being 7 gradients to the lesson plan in the 3D. And so, yeah, I've gone into all kinds of interesting voids and what I just call voids of various color. And the same could be thought of as, the etheric. There could be the etheric, and then there could be etheric space between each of the gradients and each of the dimensions, and between each of the dimensions and each of the harmonics, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, all at once. There's always a way to put it all together to where it's not this or that, but this and that. Once you arrive at the and, you're there. If you're still in the or frame of mind, you've a ways to go to process to get to the and. Yeah, no right or wrong. That's the one thing about out-of-body experiences. It gets you to know that there is no right or wrong. There is no duality. There's just infinite probability, infinite possibility. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I noticed you like Tom Campbell. He's a little different perspective. Also, Scott Mandelker. Do you listen to him at all?
Scott who?
Mandelker. He's done a lot with the raw material.
Oh, well, I'm very familiar with the raw material, but I'm not sure I'm aware of Scott.
Oh, because he's pretty, he's not the original gang, but he's been with it a long time, interfaces with the LL research group and stuff. He's done some of the work with them, so.
I've probably seen him on some of their videos. I watch everything from L&L.
Well, he's got his own channel. He's kind of a strange guy. I don't agree with everything he's about, but pretty interesting. He's very intellectual, really analyzes the raw material, bit by bit. And he's really into Buddhism and all, and he relates the two together. So it's interesting in that regard. Mm-hmm. On the negative, he's a little bit of a little wild. He's lives out of the country. He's kind of anti-US. He's kind of a conspiracy type guy,
I like wild. Good. Make things up.
He's kind of to the right, he's kind of, so I don't really agree with him politically or anything, but he's pretty good. Anyway, he's into the whole thing, like he'd say, 3.4, the subplanes being 7, so he refers to planes as one number and then a point and then the subplane number, and he'll go from 1 to 7 for the subplane,
Mm-hmm.
He uses that nomenclature quite often. I've seen other people talk about 4.9. It's like, well, how does 0.9 make sense? Of course, I'm thinking in his different structures. So like I said, there's no wrong. It's other ways people look at things.
No wrong at all. There's just an infinite way, an an infinite number of ways to perceive and pattern what you're experiencing. Yeah, and the pattern doesn't really matter. You know what matters is there being the patterns. And what matters even more to each of us is not holding tight to our own pattern, but literally having the capacity to completely let go of our own pattern, to place ourselves in another pattern, to see what it's like and what the world looks like from that frame of reference. Just fascinating. Now, once you get there, you've arrived. Ra, have you had any OBEs this month?
Yes, usually in the morning I is a time when I spend time, and almost always go out of my body. But a particular notable one was it. I don't like to use remote viewing just because I don't go through all the protocols, but it's I find myself in my twins environment, and we are traveling in a vehicle going someplace very different, and there was I could see like a dark circle. Usually sometimes I look through this being's eyes, and sometimes I'm like behind coming into view. And I saw, it's the second time I've seen this over the years. There was many what I perceived to be gray children that were there, and it was a very just a different feeling. It was special, very special for me to see that, just for that brief, time before I went to work in the morning. And I usually check in, and I feel funny if I don't. I feel disconnected if I don't check in a visual or out of body way. Usually a couple of times a day. This morning sorry.
One, have you gotten any new information during your experience this month? And two, you should document these in our dream thread. That's for OBEs and all of that also. So if that's what you want to use that space to document your daily, shifts into your twin, that would be great. So any new information that you've gotten this month when you're meeting, what are you meeting about?
I have been mostly just viewing, and what the conversations really, this week, in fact, I can't really say that, that I had some interesting things happening to me while dreaming this week, which I did document in there, and it was like a different form of communication almost. I had like a sentence, and I would wake up at different points, and I have a pen that I keep in an envelope that I scribble things on, and I'll remember it even though I can't read it the next day. I'll remember what it was and write that down. But it's like a sentence coming, like someone is saying this, and it's echoing throughout my head. And I had 3 of those this last week that were one was very powerful, and it felt very positive, and I know where it was coming from, and it was someone was saying, I am here because of you, not in a bad way, but in a like a together way. And I don't remember the second one that happened, and there was I think it was the day before yesterday that I got the feeling of someone, a young woman, saying, I am so very, very angry with you. And like she was really getting this message across to me while I was able to hear it. And that's what I got from, that's what I felt about that. Nothing visual to connect, no dream or anything to connect, just this word sentence coming through.
How are those sentences integrating through you? Usually things like that are said to create an energy dynamic through the body system for us to be processed. Are you getting anything from processing that information, those precise sentences?
Actually, yes. In the first instance, it was very, very comforting and reassuring, and helped me. I feel more solid in what I'm doing and things. And in that last one, which was a rather unpleasant communication, I'm processing that there's certain things I need to address in my own speaking forward manner. I have a big mouth that gets me in trouble, and I hurt people's feelings sometimes on the internet, and and I need to be more sensitive.
Sorry. Yeah, me too. Anyway, so you're processing your data, your information. Has there been any new channelings? Has your twin wanted to speak and send message to consensus?
I'm getting the feeling that I'm going to want to or need to put time aside in the next couple of days. And it's like something I feel is building, and it's hard to, it's almost like a physical feeling, and I resist it for some reason. I don't know why. It's like, oh, and then it's really a different process for me, because I have to learn how to keep myself down and not argue with when I come into consciousness and I hear what's being said, and I'm like, I don't want to talk about that. And it's like, I'm not talking. It's not, and it's, so I end up having this argument with, about this. And I'm getting better at just allowing what is coming through. It's not me. I'll listen to it later. I don't remember it a lot of times too, which is interesting. But I'm feeling that feeling building up again. Yeah.
I would be interested to hear your process as you're coming into, you've just said there's sort of an energy that builds, that lets you know that something is about or needing or wanting to be said, brought to consensus. But what's your process as a channel? Because this is related to out-of-body experience, the part of you that is pulled out of body is communicating with the part of you that is in this body. So it is a form of out-of-body experience. That's being brought to this reality. And this is so very important. These energies, as they're wanting to, as soon as the energy is activated, as soon as the new quantity, depths, and depths of information are coming in, they require an avenue of expression. If they're not given that avenue of expression, they pent and build in the body and cause disruption in the body. The body can't hold it. This information needs a larger body, the consensus world, to hold it. And so if we don't let it through, our own biological structures can, be taken down in that. So it's important that if you are a channel for this world, if that is one of the avenues of expression, that, you not resist. That's important. I want to see you stay healthy and happy. The information that is coming through the system, if not fought, if not resisted, will create an ideal or optimal state of health within the body. They uplift, they heal. All of those codes go in and do what they, need to do within your own system. Yeah, they're going to come across our own distortions. Yes, they're going to come across our own resistance, and that's not always going to feel good. But then we just learn to relax there. Literally just relax there. Where in the body, let me ask this, where in the body do you hold resistance in regard to the channeling?
Mostly I feel it in my chest area. This is where I feel it building, and this is where I feel resistance. But I feel the connection happens in the solar plexus area, just like the stomach area. This is where this happens for me, the feeling of this. And I have visuals that accompany this too, this whole thing.
Okay, and then your process. You're going to sit down and you're going to do a channeling. What's your process? Do you tone? Do you just go deep into yourself until you feel a certain energy and it's time to talk? What is your process?
What I usually do is I very much the same as when I go into out of body. It's the same thing. I go through, I find the portal, I find the mother portal. I will see my twin, usually. He knows when I'm going to do this and is usually waiting. And a lot of times I will see, and this is, I asked for, you know, I need some kind of sign, and I need you to help me do this, and so I understand what I'm doing. And I will see a bright orange flash of light a lot of times. Sometimes I will see visually like someone coming into me, and I'll feel this, and it's an overwhelming feeling. My body begins to feel very different, but I will wait for some kind of visual clue or something. The orange light is a pretty regular one. And then I will, usually what I've been doing is I record, because I don't remember, I will be recording already, and I will feel that I'm just going to start talking now and allow whatever comes out, because I'm feeling, I know that this presence is within me. And once this happens, it's like I kind of get booted out, and I'm on the side kind of as an observer or not, or it's not really booted out, but it's like I go into a quiet, I go into a dark room or something like that. That's how it happens for me anyway.
I'm not as far along in the process of that type of channeling, trance channeling, as you are, but in my out-of-body experiences, I was shown that I am a channel, and I discovered this space where I was landing a lot. And it's one of those voids of different colors that I talk about. And this particular void is like a chocolate brown color. It has a golden radiance that goes through it and a shimmering of pink. But it's a void space. Nothing else is there. It's fascinating. And I used to call it the interval space because back then I was, just purely a conscious out-of-body experiencer, and, spending a lot of time, again, daily, almost for 4 years, investigating these states and these different frequencies and places and all of that. And so I was noticing that I was being put through programs, what I called training programs. One was the etheric drills. And this is when I would be taken out of body, not from a conscious state of awareness. I would be taken out of body. I would be conscious in that place, but not aware that I was conscious yet. I would come conscious, come alert to the fact that I was out of body, and I would, look around, and I would notice that I only had moments to look around before they'd pull me out of there and put me in another place. And sort of fast, like you were mentioning before, it was just a quick shift, almost like, you're picked up and just put there. And, it is fast enough to knock you out again, but not all the way out. I would come alert soon enough that I was just in a location and was just put in another location. And just about as soon as I was alert that I was there, I would be taken out and put in another one. And just over and over and over again. And I realized this is a drill. This is, this isn't, the purpose of this isn't to go explore this environment. The purpose is, how quick can I get the awareness back that I'm being taken out of locations and put in new locations every time I come alert. So I would get to the point in this, usually after 3 or 4 or 5, shifts into different places, that, the only thing that I couldn't resist this. I would go through all kinds of resistance. I would try to pretend like I was still not alert. so that they wouldn't see me trying to, observe where I was. We think we can be sneaky. That's so funny. And so, nothing worked. And so, it got to the point where, as soon as they would put me somewhere, the moment I came alert, I would just say, okay, I'm here. As soon as I said, okay, I'm here, they would pull me out, put me in another. By the time I'm not resisting anymore and completely playing the game, I didn't lose awareness. I would feel the shift from that place to that place, and I would be conscious right from the start. Okay, I'm here. They'd pull me from it, put me in another. Okay, I'm here, And I learned that was a drill. One, to increase my capacity for shifts, maintaining conscious awareness through shifts, all of that. But also, it was an energy building process. You know, the ability to hold the conscious awareness through the shifts is also an ability to hold yourself conscious in a larger energetic frame, which is often hard. You could think of this in terms of, you know, how if you have a bright light shining in your face, you know, it sort of knocks you out. You know, your awareness can't handle that intensity of light that steadily. And so to protect itself, it falls into an unconscious state. It's rather like that. You learn to hold the awareness with that amount of light, with that amount of energy. And so anyway, the whole process is an energy building process by which they could shoot me way out to where they wanted me to be, collecting the data they wanted me to collect and making it back here into the beta brainwave with the data intact. That was the important part. So I got to see the internal workings of how the maintaining of the data happens. You know, there's a lot to it, you know. And anyway, I went off track there. I would be put into these etheric drills, and in the middle of these etheric drills, I would notice I would sometimes end up in these interval spaces, no environment, you know, no tables, chairs, walls, sun, sky, trees, no visual environment like that, just this void of a particular color. And again, the interval space was often that chocolate brown with the gold radiance through it and that shimmering pink, a very, very light, almost barely there, shimmering pink inside of it. And that's where I would go when they were wanting to speak through my vocal cords. Yeah, so I think that, you know, you were saying that you're put off to the side, you know, sort of inside a containment of some sort. And yeah, a very similar thing happens to me, but I was not ever to the point where I was sitting in front of a camera or speaking with people. I was, you know, in a horizontal meditation practice space session, you know. So I never got down for prosperity, what it was they were saying, but periodically I would be able to be in the location where my physical body was at the same time I was in the interval space, and I could feel what it felt like for them to be speaking through me and me not saying the words, which is just the weirdest experience ever, you know. In relation to that, you know, with the Kundalini, during that whole thing, they would move my body. Like I would be there on the mat. I was sleeping on the floor at that time. And, you know, they would just roll me over. And I would be aware that I was, you know, rolling over onto my side, but I was not doing it. They would lift my arm up into the air and just, you know, leave it there. And I'm like, whoa, this is so weird. You know, to sit there and observe movement happening through your body that you are not invoking, that, you know, something else aside from your conscious personality is doing. Yeah. So I can relate. Say more about your channeling and channeling process and how that is an out-of-body experience. Again, the portion of you that is out of this body is employing the body that you are in here in the earth life to perform an action. Say more about how that feels, how you feel about that, and how you're beginning to work with it to move further into the service.
Well, physically feeling, when I feel like a small room or a waiting room or a place like this that I'm in, and then so I more or less I find myself coming into awareness, and the feeling of having this other energy and my energy at the same time is just, it's absolutely wonderful. I feel like I'm going to burst with happiness. I mean, it's almost impossible to contain it. And a lot of times I get like the shivers, you know, when I know, okay, it's only me, I'm here now, just me. And back in my normal state. And a lot of times I will just spontaneously, I'll have tears or something. It's such an incredible, very physical, tangible feeling. Um, and yeah, that's what I'm working with more, is that I really need to, I felt at time, and I don't know if this is it, I feel like the staying down part of it is very, very hard for me. That's the hardest thing, is to allow things to just, you know, without feeling this need to control. Sometimes I feel like I'm in the back listening, like it's like I'm in the switch position of this person being forward and I'm behind, and it's the other way around, and it doesn't feel like it's me. It feels like this is how I'm supposed to feel.
I think you hit on something really important there with the control and your capacity to, or your feeling to have to get back into control. How much, what's your capacity right now? Like how many minutes can go by before you start to feel like, you know, you need to get back in there up front?
Honestly, about 10 or 15.
That's great. How long has it taken you to get to that point?
Well, I've been doing this maybe about 7 years or so. Not although the entire 7 years. This became something that I knew that I felt, and I knew that I was supposed to be practicing. And it was interesting when I did a regression with Mary Rodwell a few years ago. She had mentioned that I was this, you know, that this is what I was supposed to be doing.
I'm all excited. Just a minute. You did a regression with Mary Rodwell?
Yeah.
Did you record it?
It's on my YouTube channel, the audio.
Ah!
It was amazing. I have much more questions than I had when I went in. It was amazing. Yeah.
Very fun. I'm getting chills. I love Mary Rodwell. I love her work. Peter Maxwell Slattery, that's how I first came across Mary Rodwell and his regression sessions with her, in which he had his entity speak through him. And I'm just really connected with that energy, that gray being energy. It's not the traditional gray. They're more brown. I call them brownies. You know, I have my own in that spectrum as well. But I connected so deeply to that energy that was coming through him during those. Yeah, I immediately began following everything about her. That was before she even started traveling around to the degree that she is now. Wow. Is she still doing regressions, by the way?
I think so. What I had there was another woman that I was in touch with, Sandra. I don't remember her last name, but she had bought a couple of prints of my artwork, and we had agreed to trade. And for she does a certain type of reading, or channel readings also. For whatever reason, that didn't work out, and I guess she contacted Mary Rodwell, who contacted me, and we talked, and she, you know, offered to do a regression. She was interested in doing a regression for me because of the recommendation of this other person.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So was it actually gratis? She wanted this for her? Wow. Double wow. Kerpow. When I was up in LA, I was very close to Barbara Lamb, who lived in Claremont, you know, and I was always wanting to contact her. You know, it never happened. But she was just right there, just 40 minutes from me. Yeah. So anyway, we did a drive by a couple times. I'm like, let's drive by her house and just send her energy. We did. I'm like, maybe that will help me actually contact her and, you know, about the regression. But yeah, Mary Rodwell, just right up there, even more so to boot, because she can really get in there and seemingly draw out entity. During yours, was it you up front speaking the whole time, or did your twin come through?
It was mostly me. It was me, and then he came through at the end. I could see that I had different questions about screen images that I had when I talked about finding myself in a vehicle in 1991, with all these different people and beings and screen images, and but there was also a gray being who was with me most of the time during that.
Okay, fascinating. Did you experience the regression session any differently than you do your usual out of body?
It seemed it was a little bit clearer. And the questions that she was asking me were like really like, I could see the shoes that I was wearing that I had completely forgotten that I even owned, and I could see the clothing, my backpack, everything, and it was really something because of that. It brought me more into the vision, but the visuals were very much the same mechanism that I use. Somehow clearer though.
So the extra component, the extra person there focusing the attention helped you see a lot more. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I don't know why people resist regression. I certainly, as an out-of-body explorer, don't. I understand how I can do that within my own self, and that if I had somebody assisting from the outside to ask particular questions in a particular manner, that would help me even more. Yeah, get information that I normally don't go after, because I'm so much more interested, in other things, there's so much within the experiences that we could potentially focus into. It's hard to know which way to go. And you just go the way that your heart wants to. I'm usually wanting to break out into the where I'm in multiple locations, and when I do that, it's the way that you perceive the information is so different. Like you're not interested in what shoes you're wearing. You might be interested in what body you're wearing, and you briefly look, and you don't spend too much time on that. You know what I mean? But there's a lot more information there that you could get if you went deeper into it. But again, there's just so much. Now there's the whole environment, and there's the people in the environment, and there's what's happening, in the environment. Too much. I was always sort of wanting to focus on what the out-of-body experience is, what the fields are, what reality is, not, the details like what planet I'm on, or what race of peoples this is, or, I was always wanting to go more into the fundamental components first anyway. When I got the layout of the land, oh, okay, I get it now. I'm going out into, cosmic, universal, galactic space, and that essentially, aligns with, the physical body, energy body, mental body, causal body. Okay, the universe is the causal body, and, I started making connections. Reality is all created, getting that down, not just hearing it and say, okay, I understand that. Really, you don't. Until you're understanding it through every cell of your body, you don't have it grounded yet, and it's a fleeting thing that you can't necessarily apply to everything that you're moving in your realities. So anyway, I always wanted to get that fundamental layout of the land first, the void. Everything is void. Oh, I get it. Nothing. Okay, now I know what the Buddhists are saying, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just not hearing that the Buddhists say this and thinking, oh, okay, yeah, I close my eyes and there's nothing. There's a black screen. Okay, it's deeper than that, It's full body. It's full awareness, full energy, full body. Yeah. And now applicable in a more whole and holistic way in the reality systems I find myself in. So that's what I wanted. Now that I have the layout of the land, now I can go after fun data. This is why it would be interesting to start channeling now. I want help with this. I need peer pressure. Somebody, I don't even know, my block with the channeling is I don't know how to begin. Okay, here, I'm gonna channel for you right now. See, I don't know how to begin. If I just started going inside myself, I would be concerned just there's going to be blank space here and nothing being said. So with me, it's a matter of just not knowing how to begin. I can't get past the block of thinking I don't know how to begin. I think I'm going to begin right now. I'm getting a message about this, and I've gotten this message before. I'm going to start sitting in front of this mirror and channeling. I need to start doing that every night.
I think you need to work with a guide that you've already been working with and not just try to grab something out of the ether at random. That's probably not a good way to go.
Oh, yeah, it's all myself. It's Anton, when you go into yourself, you're going out into a larger area of yourself. And any of yourself, of your soul life forms are there. They'll know that you've arrived there. They will connect with you. And so I have a variety of them that come through to me, which I've shown you through the crystal. And if anybody keeps track of the crystal images that I post. So a variety of them are there. The Arcturian is there, the one with the eyes, the one that everybody can see. Yeah, that fellow is there. There is an aquatic reptilian being, not your traditional Draco reptilian or anything like that, but a sea-living reptile being has come through, came real forward, so forward you almost couldn't see him, because he was just so close up. Yeah, he's there. He's wanting to work on the channeling with me. So anyway, yeah, it's just yourself. Yeah, yourself won't let other self in unless there's agreement. This was a fun talk. Maybe at a certain point we should open a group for channeling. It being highly related to the Conscious OBE. And it could be in any form of speaking for all speakers in any of the formats, not just trance channeling. I have a new kind of channeling that is possible for me to help bring in. I find it absolutely fascinating because it's not being done yet. Or it's not being done overtly for consensus. So there may be others with this capacity. There definitely are others with this capacity, but we're not fully coming out of the closet yet with the capacity. And that is to bring through not only the words, but the visual format of who it is that's here speaking them. So creating that energy dynamic, that pattern of awareness that actually superimposes that pattern over the pattern that you see here that you're accustomed to seeing as me, which will be the one that's coming through. So you'll actually be able to see its form as it's speaking. That's a part of the work that we were doing with the crystal and the crystal images. At first, you may have noticed it was very difficult for you to pattern your awareness in a way that allowed you to see who was there. But as you began seeing the images more and more, the patterns became easier and easier to see. You began expanding your range of vision out into frequencies that allowed you to tune into who it was there that was coming through. And it will be the same thing with the channeling. Not everyone will be able to see at first, but if you stay with it and allow the frequencies to repattern, help you repattern your awareness to tune into the right channel, you will begin to visually see who's speaking as the words and concepts and ideas are coming through. Just fascinating. What's your service, Anton? Everyone has a service, all of us.
Well, it's supposed to be my YouTube channel, but nobody watches it, so it's kind of. I've thought of writing, or I've even thought of trying to start a little group, or at least have a meeting once up north. See if there's anybody up there who would come to a meeting like that. It'd be pretty fun to do, though.
That's important. Let's pause there for just a minute. There are those of us who are hubs, and it's a part of our service to group others of us together and to have, once we establish our group, to begin grouping our group with other groups, creating larger structures, larger patterns of us amongst us. And so you may be a hub. You may be one of those whose service it is to begin bringing others into group formations. And this is probably, it's the height of the services that we have to offer right now. Because if we don't achieve these groups, if we don't achieve the grouping of our group with other groups, we will not reach our consensus, the consensus among the seeds that are here to do the work that we're here doing. We can't remain independent and by ourselves, and we can't remain in our own little groups opposing our other groups of other seeds. We need to group our group with those groups. So first, we need to group ourselves as a group, and then group that group with other groups. It's like think of a snowflake, the little bits of snow coming together to form a snowflake. That's what we're doing.
That's one of the things I do miss from living in a big metro area. I lived in southeastern Michigan. There was a lot going on. You go to meetings and stuff like that. And I'm in a place now where I'm in the middle of a forest, basically.
That's
I will go north. I've been meaning to go north and to a bigger city called Traverse City and attend a meeting there, just to see what they do there.
Just let's touch on this before you go further. It's important that you are where you are, because our groups need to get themselves outside the cities right now. Why? Why do we need to get outside the cities? Why are we getting ourselves outside the cities? I had to get myself out of LA. That was the hardest thing to do. I'm not in San Diego. I'm on the very outskirts of San Diego. There's almost nothing past where we are, for 100 miles. And so I don't know how long I can be here. My niece is inevitably going to need this room. But right now I'm outside the city. I need to somehow stay outside the city. I think that's important for all of us right now. There's too much electromagnetic smog in the cities. Yeah. And 5G is coming.
There's sort of a group think too in a city or even a neighborhood,
Yes, AI and the control system is ruling. And, this is why we need to get ourselves outside the city. We need to get ourselves outdoors, back in connection, and communication with nature. And this is where we will establish our groups. Others will come to us. You may have a home where other people come. If you have space that's larger than the space you need for yourself, or you may find yourself putting up tents or yurts or something if you have land and people coming. We will be grouping in these. They don't have to be large groups. We just can't be by ourselves anymore. It's very important that we not be.
I do keep a guest room, so I advertise that once in a while to people. So try to get some guests up there to keep them going crazy.
Yeah. And then there's the internet, of course, which is the way that we're doing the majority of our grouping at present. But Anton, this is important. You just could be a hub is what I'm, basically wanting to say. Find out what your service is and begin providing it. Provide it on a daily basis. Work it on a daily basis. Ra, you are a channel. Work it on a daily basis. Please encourage me to begin working mine on a daily basis, because we need to activate these services, the ones that we haven't fully activated yet. I'm not just a conscious OBEer. Yes, I am. Yes, I'm going to, one of my main jobs is to help people consciously make the shift. but I'm also a visual and vocal channel. And so I have to activate these. In me, they have not been fully activated yet. And it does need to happen. I can feel the tension. I can feel where it's being um, unbeneficially confined in my body and, you know, needing to get out. So please help me. Please help me. Maybe we should meet and channel for each other.
That would be great. I've been wanting to. I really have been like hoping that somehow, some way, I'll meet someone that also will help encourage me, and uh, you know, and we can encourage each other in that way. And because it's an odd thing to do. I mean, but it's really very, very humbling. It,
Mhm.
and yeah, I can sense that that would really be wonderful, just to be able to support, you know, people that are venturing into this. And
Let's do it. I'll open up a new group. I'll find a space somehow, some way.